There's a reason this story has been passed quietly among Cold War engineers, field researchers, and old Nordic homesteaders, but almost never talked about in mainstream prepping circles. If you want to understand one of the most overlooked survival tools of the 20th century, stay right here, because this is something every serious historian and every serious prepper should know. And before we go deeper, subscribe to The Prepper Historian so you don't miss the forgotten techniques that still outperform many modern survival gadgets. Why a simple brick became a strategic tool during the Cold War. Cold War heating technology wasn't always powered by electricity, diesel or coal. Some of the most reliable heat sources used by Border Patrol units, remote watch posts and intelligence teams were low-tech, nearly indestructible thermal storage bricks. The concept was simple. Use dense, heat-retentive ceramic material, heat it once, then rely on its slow release of warmth for hours in freezing temperatures. These weren't decorative fireplace stones. They were engineered with purpose, shaped for portability, and deployed in Arctic stations, underground bunkers, and isolated listening posts where equipment failure could cost a life. What made them exceptional was that they didn't crack or lose their thermal capacity, even in sub-zero storage. They absorbed heat quickly and released it slowly, exactly what you wanted when power lines failed or fuel convoys couldn't get through. How these thermal bricks were engineered to prevent freezing even in extreme cold. A typical Cold War heating brick used a dense refractory ceramic that could withstand sudden temperature shifts without fracturing. Some were designed using alumina-rich material with low porosity, meaning water couldn't seep inside the microstructure and cause expansion damage when frozen. Others were fired at higher temperatures than standard building bricks, creating a vitrified structure that resisted frost entirely. This is why Soviet outposts in Siberia and NATO's remote northern bases kept stacks of these bricks next to wood stoves, kerosene heaters, or steam vents. They could preheat them, store them, and reuse them endlessly. Even after sitting untouched in -40 conditions, the bricks worked as if they had just come from a kiln. That reliability is what made them more than tools. They were survival insurance. Why this mattered for soldiers, scientists, and remote observers during the Cold War. Anyone stationed in hostile frozen regions needed predictable heat sources for small enclosed spaces such as watch huts, communications cabins, and medical tents. A single heated brick could raise the temperature under a coat or blanket, enough to prevent hypothermia. Several bricks arranged around a makeshift warming box could keep critical electronics above their minimum operating temperature. And for medics, a few thermal bricks wrapped in cloth could warm IV fluids or stabilize a frostbitten limb until evacuation was possible. These were practical, real uses documented in field reports from the era. Soldiers didn't care about theory. They needed something they could rely on when the generators refused to start at 30 below zero. These bricks provided that quiet, dependable warmth when everything else froze solid. How you can recreate the Cold War heating brick today using modern materials. There are two good approaches for making your own. The first is using modern fire clay or soapstone, both of which hold heat exceptionally well. You can cut or mould them into hand-sized blocks or slabs about 2 inches thick and let them cure or fire according to the material's requirements. Once heated for about an hour in a standard oven or wood stove, they output steady warmth for several hours. The second method involves purchasing pre-made refractory bricks, the kind used to line wood stoves or kilns. These have nearly identical properties to the Cold War versions and can be used immediately. If you want something close to historical accuracy, select high-density 2800-degree rated fire bricks. How to apply this knowledge in real survival situations today. In field conditions, heat the brick on top of a stove, near coals, or against a metal panel warmed by a campfire. Wrap it in a thick cloth, wool shirt, or canvas pouch to prevent burns. Slip it into your sleeping bag before turning in for the night. You'll wake up warmer, drier, and far more rested. For home emergency kits, keep several pre-selected thermal bricks near your emergency stove. During blackouts, heat them once and distribute them around the room to keep ambient temperature stable. If you're storing backup batteries for radios or drones in freezing climates, place a preheated brick in a small insulated case with the equipment to protect it from low-temperature shutdown. These are the same principles used during the Cold War because they still work and they don't depend on anything except basic thermodynamics. How this forgotten tool remains useful for both homesteaders and urban survivalists. In a homestead setting, thermal bricks extend the usefulness of a small wood stove by radiating heat long after the fire dies down. Urban preppers can store several in an apartment without drawing attention or taking much space. When the power fails during winter storms, these bricks provide slow-release warmth that can make the difference between discomfort and a dangerous dip in body temperature. Their value isn't tied to technology or specialized fuel. That's what made them powerful in the Cold War and what makes them timeless today. Why this topic matters to serious historians and survivalists. The Cold War wasn't just about nuclear standoffs and spy satellites. It was about human endurance in the harshest conditions. Understanding how people stayed alive in remote regions shows us which tools truly stood the test of time. The heating brick that never froze is one of those tools. It is a reminder that the most dependable survival gear often predates the era of batteries and electronics. And for those studying Cold War logistics, this brick represents an entire philosophy. Be self-sufficient, anticipate failure, and rely on materials that can withstand environments more hostile than any battlefield. If you learned something new today, share this with another history buff and make sure you subscribe to The Prepper Historian. There's a whole world of forgotten survival knowledge waiting for you.